Well, of course, it's an election year in the United States. Let's get a read on all things politics and how it translates to markets. Alex Tureman is with Bondi Partners and joins us now live from Washington. Alex, pleasure to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us here on AusBiz. I guess talk us through your view of how the US presidential race is shaping up, particularly given this year is so different with Trump unable to go on the campaign trail.
Well, Ingrid, it's a really great question. Thanks so much for having me on. We're now 168 days out from Election Day, and we're in a brave new world. As you mentioned, Vice President Biden is campaigning from the basement of his home, and the president can no longer hold those rallies he's so famous for. So we have two 70-plus-year-old candidates in their campaigns trying to figure out how to digitize a presidential campaign, which has never fully been done in the U.S. in the past. And we also have, the conventions that are barreling down in summer. The Democrats have already moved theirs to August, and they very well may go fully online with that. I assume there could be a few events around that, but I don't see the GOP not having an in-person rally with adoring fans around the president.
I mean, do you think this is going to change the shape of this election at the end of the day then? I mean, in terms of outcomes, who can digitise, who can campaign better from a digital sphere?
Well, absolutely. And, for an Australian audience, you really got to think about the cost of these. This could be in the range of $2 billion US, the cost of fundraising and the amount of media that's going to be pushed on this. So it's big business. That's going to be online, that's going to be on television, and they're going to leverage those technologies very, very much because they're not going to be able to knock on people's doors. They're not going to be able to have folks in phone banks all the time.
How do you think this is impacting the economy and particularly what we're hearing from, say, Donald Trump? I mean, there's been a lot of talk about trade wars between the US and China in particular and whether that rhetoric is all to do because it's an election year and perhaps there's a blame game to be played there. What's your take on that?
Well, the economic situation, as you know, is staggering. I mean, we have 36.5 million folks have filed for unemployment since the beginning of March. We're at 14.7% unemployment. Just last month in April, Treasury doled out $48 billion in unemployment assistance to those folks. That's more than 3 times than at any month during the Great Recession. So the numbers are absolutely staggering. Congress is grappling with the new reality that we face, holding online hearings, but they are definitely going to have to step up to the plate here because states, counties, municipal governments, they're seeing their funds depleted, and God forbid those go broke because that means furloughed firemen, furloughed first responders, furloughed police officers, and none of us want to see that.
No, it's out of the question. And I mean, you look at sort of the reopening of the economy because the US has become somewhat of an epicenter for COVID-19. Do you think the reopening, or is the thought there, I mean, just even from what you're hearing anecdotally, that economies are reopening too quickly?
Well, the virus is affecting different areas differently, right? So the hotbed was New York a few weeks ago. Those numbers are receding. Same with Florida. Those numbers are receding. But places like Alabama and Arkansas are seeing an increase. So it's really a jurisdiction by jurisdiction opening. It's going to have to be that way. When push comes to shove, I think the vast majority of Americans want to reopen safely. The numbers suggest that. And that's going to include everything like y'all are doing down under with, social distancing, with wearing masks, with ensuring that, there's cleanliness around workplaces and common areas. And you know what? We're going to have to do that because if we do want to get back to full force, we're going to have to be as safe as possible. And ultimately, if we don't follow those CDC guidelines, we're going to find ourselves with, more outbreaks in the future. We're going to find ourselves subsequently with more shutdowns. No one wants to see that.
Just quickly, US-Australia, what are you making of the relationship between the US-Australia? Has COVID-19 changed that or altered the direction in any way?
Well, I'm a little biased having worked very closely with Australia on the alliance. And I truly believe that the U.S.-Australia alliance is stronger than at any point in history. You know, the U.S. and Australia have stood shoulder to shoulder in every single major military conflict for the last 100 years and still going. And, you know, the relationship is diversifying in the trade and investment space as well. I mean, you look at agriculture, you look at emerging technologies, you look at minerals, critical minerals, and it's just really astounding how strong the bond is. You know, just last week or just 2 weeks ago, two co-chairs of the Friends of Australia caucus penned a letter reaffirming their commitment and support in the U.S. and Congress's commitment and support of the alliance in the face of China's threats when it comes to things like barley coming out of Australia.
Alex, pleasure to talk. Thank you so much for joining us there out of Washington.
Thank you so much, Ingrid.